Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry. I'm a high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher X video. All right, we're returning to Map Men, and they put out a video recently that is blowing up, and it's called How Bad Maps Win Elections, Gerrymandering Explained. Now, if you don't know what gerrymandering is, stick around because it may be something that you don't know is going on. And it's a huge point of political contention, especially in the United States. So I'm interested to see these guys who are Brits have to say about gerrymandering in America, and we'll add some history along the way. All right, the original video is linked down below. Please support these guys. They're great. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. That lets other people know that they should watch it. All right, let's get started. Map Men.
Can we do an episode about politics? No! All right, what if it's about politics in a foreign country?
Everyone hates it.
Fun. Great, welcome to Map Men. We're the men, and here's the map.
Map Men, Map Men, Map
Men.
This is a map of the 435 districts that the USA is split into for the purposes of voting for members of Congress.
Yes, my non-American friends, that is what our voting map looks like. But let's remember that some are bigger than others because you're looking at land, not people.
The powerful people who pick the policies the president can pass.
Because elections have to be fair, it's important that the map is fair. That's why every 10 years the boundaries get redrawn to make sure every district always contains, as closely as possible, the same number of people.
One of the reasons why you have a census. A lot of countries have a census, which is taking information about the demographics of people, and it informs things like taxes, of course, population changes, but yes, districts. And if you're, maybe your state crossed a new threshold where you get a new representative or something in government.
About 700,000.
Which means that this map
Wait, what do you say?
Contains, as closely as possible, the same number of people. About 700,000.
Which means that this map is actually a very handy way of glancing at population density across the United States.
For example, sparsely populated Wyoming has one district and just one representative. Hello. And densely populated New York has 26.
That makes sense. But if you zoom in, some of it doesn't.
You'd be like
sense.
the king of Wyoming,
Lots of districts
though.
have very suspicious-looking shapes.
Buh? Grr?
It is ugly when you look at urban areas.
Really have to be so fnr just to get the populations equal.
Nope, there's something more sinister going on. And to find out what it is, we have to go back to 1812.
All right, see if they cope or whatever about the War of 1812. All of a sudden, the Canadian viewers just got really, really excited.
Where are we?
We're still in England, but it's 1812.
Shouldn't we be in Boston?
The story starts in Boston, in the office of the governor of Massachusetts, Elbridge Gerry.
With a G.
With a G. There was an election coming up, and it looked like Gerry was about to lose his job. But his advisors came up with a bill that could practically guarantee a victory for their party without having to win any extra votes.
Cheat without
All they had
cheating.
to do was change the map.
But how does changing the map change the results?
That's what Elbridge Gerry said.
How does changing the map change the results?
Allow us to demonstrate with the use of state-of-the-art graphics. Let's say there's a hypothetical rectangular state with two parties, the Chocolate Raisin Party and the Smarty Party.
The Smarty Party is more popular, obviously.
No, chocolate raisins are good. I don't even know what that is on the left. What is that supposed to be? Weird British food?
A fair result that you'd expect is 3 Smarty districts and 2 Chocolate Raisin districts.
But watch what happens if someone from the Smarty Party is in charge of drawing the map. They can make it so that Smarties control every district. Smarty indeed.
But, more sneakily, watch what happens if someone from the Chocolate Raisin Party is in charge of drawing the map. They can mathematically make 3 Chocolate Raisin districts and just 2 Smarty, even though there are more Smarties.
Getting it, kids?
Shrivelly things.
But
There are a lot of ways you can screw with elections, even if you are the minority group.
Massachusetts wasn't a perfect rectangle with voters arranged into unrealistically neat rows.
Wyoming is.
In order to achieve their desired results on a real map of thousands of
people
human
there.
voters, Gerry's team would have to draw their boundaries using 2 techniques: packing and cracking.
Cracking is when you break up a community of opposition voters and dissolve them into surrounding districts, making their votes powerless.
Very
A
common.
bit like giving all your dinner guests a tiny bit of vodka in every part of the meal spread across the evening, so everyone gets very, very slightly, barely detectably drunk.
And packing is when you do the opposite.
Oh, see
Very,
that?
very slightly, barely detectably
You gotta look at all the little J's. They're so funny.
drunk.
And packing is when you do the opposite, and pack as many opposition supporters as possible into just one district, making their votes wasted.
A bit like giving all of your vodka to just one of your dinner guests, keeping everyone else completely sober except Uncle Steve.
Once the concept was finally explained to Elbridge Gerry, he said he didn't like it and thought it was...
Highly disagreeable.
But he signed the bill anyway like a coward, and history was made.
Oh no! All right, here's the foreshadowing, you guys. This is happening all over the place in the United States, if you did not know. And if you see a problem with it, yes, there is.
Gerry's team looked at a map of where their supporters lived, and after a heavy night of packing and cracking, this is what they came up with, including this improbably bendy, sort of lizard-shaped district.
The new map caused quite a stir and caught the attention of political cartoonist Elkanah Tisdale and his editor Nathan Hale at the Boston Gazette. Hey, have you seen Governor Gerry's new district
We're in
map?
costumes and stuff.
Looks like a salamander.
Ha, you mean a Gerrymander? And that's how the process of manipulating maps for political gain became known as gerrymandering.
That's awesome, dude. So I miss like political cartoons because people actually looked at them back then. By the way, do you guys know why political cartoons became really popular? It was to be able to kind of direct towards those who maybe didn't have high reading skills. So you could be able to communicate some kind of political opinion or something with the least amount of textual information possible.
And then everyone started pronouncing it wrong.
Which is how it became known as gerrymandering, which was good news
I'll call
for
it
Gerry.
Gary,
He'd
I
probably
guess.
be delighted that his name hasn't technically gone down in history for this bad thing.
Which brings us back to the present day.
Anyway, in a proper democracy, such obvious cheating would have been instantly spotted and nipped in the bud. But due to America's quirky,
Stunningly undemocratic
system where it's politicians themselves who draw their own district maps, gerrymandering very much continues to this day. And it's more sophisticated, high-tech and openly brazen than ever before or anywhere else in the world, and can be seen in swing states all across America.
A shower head, a car with wings, one of those old-fashioned hand drill things,
A dinosaur, a watering can, the shape on the flag of the Isle of Man.
a metal detector, a bale of hay, a knight sitting on his horse the wrong way,
A rabbit in a hat and a bobbit and a spoon.
Super Soaker Seahorse Cameroon, a plume of steam from a mug
This
of
is so
tea,
good.
Donald Duck being kicked by Goofy.
a carpet stain from a naughty pup,
A mouse leaning over with a big thumbs up.
snake, dog, bat, dog,
Now
snake,
they're
dog, snake.
stretching.
We'll be right back after the break.
That was fantastic.
Hello, is this the travel
That
agents?
really was great there. Yes. But yeah, they do have weird shapes. Not just because it may have a weird shape, may not believe it has something, I guess, nefarious going for it. But yes, it's probably something that should be looked a little bit closer, though.
Yes, we are still a thing.
Bonkers. I'd like a round-the-world trip, please.
Ah, you want to see such famous sights as the Taj Mahal, the Pyramids of Giza, and the Belgian boy doing a wee.
Better than that, I want to go to Edmonton to watch Spider-Man No Way Home on Canadian Netflix, which isn't available in the UK. Then I want to go to Aberdeen to watch 24 Hours in Tesco on UK Netflix, which isn't available in Canada. Then I want
Good
to go
ad
to
integration.
Baden-Baden in Germany to get a discount not available in the UK on flights to Baden-Baden.
But didn't you know you can simply achieve
what?
all this with Surfshark VPN, an app and browser extension that makes your browser think it's in another country, bypassing your own country's restrictions, allowing you to view streaming services and discounts that aren't available in your country, such as Canadian Netflix from a British computer or Belgian Amazon Prime from a Namibian computer, and
start
so on,
using
as well
that
as
for
providing security
sales.
benefits by masking your IP address and encrypting your data, preventing you from being tracked by advertisers and hackers, all with just one account on an
Never thought
unlimited
of it
number
that.
of
You can get
devices,
better
available with a
deals.
special deal for viewers of MapMen who can click the link in the description or scan this QR code and use the code MapMen to get an extra 4 months for free.
Yes, I'm well aware of Surfshark. I've seen 12 adverts for it on this channel alone, and frankly, I'm getting sick of it.
Well, what would you rather see an advert for?
They've sponsored me too. I appreciate them.
All right,
I use
there you
their I use their service actually.
Whether you're sharing a picnic with your family, or you want to give your lunch that extra crunch, or you're settling down to watch television with a friend with benefits, there's nothing quite like crisps.
This is like the funniest one I've watched
Happy
yet
now?
at Map
Yes,
Men.
thank you. I quite like that.
Still want that round the world trip?
Nah, I'm just going to buy some crisps. Oh, and Surfshark.
Potato chips here in America. All right.
Thank you.
Well, that was fun. But gerrymandering,
Gerrymandering.
everyone says gerrymandering.
Everyone's wrong.
Gerrymandering has serious
It's like the GIF thing. Like, okay, we know the creator said it was GIF, but like we already decided as a community. The internet already decided, so it's GIF.
consequences.
North Carolina.
Gerrymandering.
Everyone's wrong.
Gerrymandering has serious consequences.
North Carolina. In the 2018 midterm elections, Republicans
I do
won
want to add some history though, a little bit about, especially when this starts to get talked about a little bit. During starting with, I guess you would say Jim Crow era, and really I guess after the Civil War, one of the things that a lot of people, white aristocrats in the South especially, were very fearful of was the new voting rights that were given to, freed slaves, African Americans. And you started to see some gerrymandering happening there. And so you had that going on. So some of it, historically there had been racial tones to it. Fast forward to like Industrial Revolution, you get a big disparity between rich and poor. A lot of the districts might cut up, say, a poorer part of a city so that their desires and their things that they would advocate for in voting would basically get diluted amongst the higher socioeconomic status. So there's some history there, and all the way, going through the civil rights era, but it's still something that people talk about today. And it's something that both political parties, right? We're a two-party system because of the essentially because of the Electoral College. But there are instances of places that break up, Democrat votes and Republican votes. It actually goes both ways in a lot of places.
10 out of 13 seats with just 51% of the votes.
Ohio. Republicans won 12 out of 16 seats with just 52% of the votes.
And the Democrat Party does it too.
Now, some of these, again, can be kind of, different. Generally speaking, in the United States, rural areas will be more likely to be Republican. More urban areas will be more likely to vote for Democrat. And that happens in every state, essentially. Urban areas lean that way. Again, you can go to a place that's going to, as a state, completely vote red, like a Texas or something, in the modern sense. But remember, the idea is that land is not supposed to vote, even though a lot of people say that is one thing gerrymandering will do, is have more about land than people.
52% of the votes.
But like what you're seeing here, these are big cities in Ohio, right here. It's where the people are.
And the Democrat Party does it too.
Mar-I-Lawned. Democrats won 7 out of
Maryland's
8
already
seats with
weird
just
shaped.
63% of the votes.
So then, why don't they just make squiggly districts illegal?
Oh, if only it were that simple.
Exactly.
Sometimes
It's not
a
easy.
district that looks sillily squiggly has been made squiggly for a good reason.
Republican voters and Democrat voters tend to clump together with their own kind, with Republicans mostly in the countryside and Democrats mostly in big cities.
He gets
This
it.
is called self-sorting, and it's only getting more extreme.
The problem with self-sorting is, if your district has no opposition in it, your politician won't have to work hard, and you won't have to bother to vote.
And so, to encourage healthy competitive
It's the same
elections,
reason why you're not going to see like presidents go to certain states in their campaign because they have a limited amount of time. They're probably not going to go to, again, a state that's just statistically probably not going to vote for you. In the United States, they're again what we call swing states. These are states that have kind of are very divided equally, and you'll see that. Okay, you'll see it like Wisconsin is one, Minnesota has been one before, Pennsylvania, Virginia. These are states that have historically gone in different directions. So you'll see a lot of campaigning in those places.
legislators make districts
Ohio.
squiggly on purpose,
Ohio is
encouraging
one
politicians
sometimes.
to broaden their appeal and prevent politics from being polarized.
Competitiveness is not the only good
You
reason.
see that, like what he's saying, like you see in there, that is one of those examples. So you could see in the circle district, the reds are not going to be able to get a lot of votes, and obviously the blues are not. So one would say, well, what do? Do you just draw a circle around the blues and then one around the reds? Maybe, but then you're just then it's pretty much stuck forever.
And prevent politics from being polarized.
Competitiveness is not the only good reason for bonkers-looking map squiggles. Take a look at Illinois. In central Chicago, you'll find the famous Earmuffs district, Illinois' 4th, which wraps around the 7th, barely holding itself together with the I-2.
See, because otherwise you would be drawing districts based off of what the politics already are. And some people may say, okay, maybe that's like a good thing or whatever. But if you are like the Reds in that group, you might be like, well, that chunky area there is going to be able to decide a lot with a lot of people. But then some people are like, well, it's only one district. It seems like there's so many pros and cons, and it's not perfect.
294 highway.
But it could definitely be
Both
improved.
the 4th and 7th districts are solid Democrat. So why in the name of all that jazz were they split this way?
Members of Congress don't just make up numbers for their party. Each one is supposed to represent their community.
A so-called community of interest can mean people from a certain industry or housing type or education or race.
For decades in America, minorities were terribly underrepresented in Congress. After much campaigning, in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed, which made it illegal for any state to do anything that made it difficult for minorities to get elected.
Yeah. So there used to be this thing, like I was saying, especially in the post-slavery South, where although constitutionally freed slaves, were supposed to be able to vote, there were things put in place that limited them. Things like a poll tax, like trying to basically charge for a vote. You had to pay a tax to be able to do that. Also, literacy tests. So you have to pass, some kind of literacy test, and that could disfranchise a lot of people based off of that. And that went on for decades in a lot of places. And again, you can see it wasn't officially ended till really the civil rights era and when you actually got legislation going on in the mid 60s. But that's the history behind it.
Which included drawing voting districts that broke up minority communities.
What this practically means is every state is now required to pack voters of the same race into fewer districts.
No one wants it to be necessary, but it's the only way to make Congress reflect America's true diversity instead of its true racism.
That's true. So you see that too, how if you start drawing, boundaries based off some of those things, you're literally dividing people up based off of those things. It's not promoting some kind of unity. It's, in fact, what it's going to do is make people and places more split from each other. And maybe some people are like, I like that. You have the people that like this thing over here and these people that can go over there and they can have their, values or whatever. A lot of people say that's antithetical to what society, I guess, is supposed to be.
Which explains this. This is a mostly African American community, and these are two mostly Latino communities.
So immediately we can see the problem. You can make districts compact, or you can make them competitive, or you can make them keep a community. But you can't make them all three.
Yep. You can't do it all at the same time.
Gerrymandering so
I think I'll put this in the comment. You guys, if you haven't seen, look down in the comment section. I always try to post a comment that gets you engaged about something in the video. And the one I had been thinking about thus far was, what do you think is the best way to draw voting districts? Because again, you have, it's got to be based off population. Okay. It's got to be based off equal population, because that's how, like, especially with the House of Representatives, is every certain amount of people you have in your state, you get another vote or representative, therefore vote in Congress. So still's got to be based on population. But after that, what do you do?
so hard. No one can agree on which is the most important seat.
Which is why all attempts over
I'm going
the
to
last
put that
few
down below.
decades
Respond to
at
that
fixing
comment.
gerrymandering have produced various amounts of not much success, including, most notably, in California, with the strong support of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's time to say hasta la vista to gerrymandering.
He's a Republican. Yes, if you didn't know, he was governor of the biggest state in the United States, and the fifth largest economy in the world. Republicans have talked about this a lot in California. California, you could see it with their Senate seats and the way they vote for the president. They're Democrat, okay, strong Democratic stronghold. But there are a lot of Republicans in there. It's just that there's these high density areas like in LA or something, and people complain, well, why is San Francisco and LA get to decide things for the rest of the state? But then people are like, well, a lot of the rest of the state is just land, and land doesn't just get representation, equal representation. It's about people.
But in almost every case, any attempt to fix it has only made things worse, serving only to highlight how impossible it is to make everybody happy.
Since we're not in America, it's easy for us as outsiders, living in a country whose democracy is practically perfect in every way, to tell Americans how they should run theirs.
So, just in time for the next...
Well, you can do it a little bit differently there. They have a parliamentary system, and you can have multiple parties, and, depending on votes, you get representation based off what percentage of the votes are. We have winner-take-all system in the United States. That's why there's only two parties. Any kind of third party is never going to get what you need, which is essentially 51%. And so you get zero representation, even if you were to maybe get 25% of the vote. That's where some people are saying the United States should maybe push towards.
Next round of redistricting in 2031, here are Mapman's top tips for how the USA can fix gerrymandering.
Okay. I want to hear them.
1. Instead of giving districts boring numbers, make legislators give them actual names. The longer the name, the harder the shape will be to justify.
Okay, so they're
2.
joking.
Get
I
computers
was hoping
to
for
draw
like
the
good
districts
answers
for you.
here.
AI is a powerful tool these days,
Sure.
and the robots know what's best for us.
3. Abolish geographical districts
Fibre.
and divide the country by communities of internet. The people who share your priorities that need representing in government are all across the country, and not just physically close to you.
4. Increase the number of members of Congress from 435 to 435,000, so each district contains just one street. You can't say it wouldn't work.
And 5. Stop worrying about democracy and just let a dictator take over.
Yeah.
Before we start blaming America's politicians for cheating,
Literally what happens in history. Democracy fails, authoritarianism takes over, and people feel that they have justification of having their needs be addressed by their government, and it fails for whatever reason. Maybe it's just a messed up voting system or something like that, then yep, authoritarianism, violence, force usually fills its space.
Democracy, it's important to remember gerrymandering is only possible because voters are predictable. You can't draw lines around how people are going to vote if you don't know how they're going to vote.
Today, more than ever before, people
Base it off
support
history.
political parties like football teams and are less likely to ever allow their minds to be changed.
I blame Twitter.
And the more this happens, the harder it is to draw anything apart from depressingly predictable districts.
In the last election, 81% of Americans lived in districts where it was extremely obvious who was going to win, leaving it to just a tiny handful of swing voters to decide the result for the whole country.
So does that then mean that we've made our districts that way? We've made them that way? Is that what that means? The way we've drawn them is to make it, impossible for shifts to happen for the most part?
Leaving it to just a tiny handful of swing voters to decide the result for the whole country.
It's impossible to draw a map that will make everybody happy, but fighting for fairness is worth the faff. If
Just
voters
get rid
can
of
at least
voting.
feel their voices being heard, they'll be encouraged to turn up and vote to vote for their real favourite, making democracy more meaningful.
Until then, the American political system will remain an antiquated basket case that enables those with power to rig the system for themselves and block any meaningful progress for the foreseeable future.
Glad we don't live in a country like that.
Well, we're wigs. Come on. Final thoughts. All right, go to the comment that I'm going to put down below the description and tell me what you think should be the fairest way to draw voting districts. Not saying it's the utmost thing that's fair, but what do you think would be the fairest? Now, this video did show a lot of problems. I was hoping maybe from insight, like they could be like, hey, do this, but they were basically like, no, you're on your own. And we're just left with the hypothesis that it just will eventually turn into what? Authoritarianism? Oh no. All right. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this. Give this video a thumb up. If you're not subbed, please sub. Want to see more of you. We'll see y'all next time.